Welcome back, Tribe. I have one here from the Chris Williamson podcast. It's a section that says the lost treasure of a traditional woman.
Here. When you find out that she's unvaxxed, not a feminist, loves the Lord and aspires to be a wife, mother, and homemaker, and it's Joe Rogan in the video going, oh, like it's a comedy thing. And the caption was, do such unicorns still exist? In the comments, people were dating. So girls were replying and saying, you know, you should come to church on a Sunday. We still exist out there, like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
What I'm fascinated by is what is going on where unvaxxed, not a feminist, loves the Lord, aspires to be a wife, mother, and homemaker is like a counterculture finding a bar of gold hidden in the sand like treasure.
It is, because we're so distracted by the women that aren't. The reality is that we're so bombarded with images of the women who are the opposite, who are the feminists, who are out there, who are not really of the Lord and don't really aspire to that. We see they're the loudest. So we see them on social media. They might be the ones that sexualize themselves a lot more. They might be the ones that put themselves out there. So what men are gravitating towards visually is going to be that filter of that kind of woman, the opposite. And the ones that they're ignoring visually tend to have those qualities. So here's the thing in life, everything comes at a compromise. Now, if you want somebody that will stimulate you the most sexually, she's not going to be a virgin. She's not going to be on church on Wednesdays. She's just not going to be that girl. She might be somebody who's a little bit more conventional. If you want somebody who is going to be those, you might have to compromise. Now, what's happening is because we've become so shallow and we value so many junk values, such as so many superficial things like looks, when she's not beautiful, you don't even pay attention to her. So if she's not the most stunning girl, it doesn't matter what qualities have. She becomes invisible. A bit like with men. If they're not tall, a lot of women will ignore their existence, even if they've got all the other great traits. Similarly, if she's not absolutely sexy, is what men are now attracted to. They're looking for sexy more than ever before because it's normalized, it's Instagram, it's pornography. If she's not sexy, they don't even notice that woman. So that's why they think women like this are unicorns, but they are there. You just don't notice them because they don't have their boobs on your For You page.
Why do you
And this is the natural reaction to men doing the overseas thing and calling it passport bros. So they have found them and they're all overseas in great numbers. It's not a needle in a haystack like it would be in the West. You don't have to go looking at church in specific places, some faraway rinky-dink towns. No, you go overseas and the whole country is traditional. They're everywhere. It's normal to love your family. It's normal to love men, to want to build a family together with a man, to take care of a man. It's normal to be feminine. This is why the whole passport bro thing is exploding. This is why modern dating in the West is a mess. Men have started to find that. That's why women are now pushing back and telling men that they're exploiting these women by going overseas, that they're dusties and we didn't want you anyways. They know that they're not as valuable as their mothers or their great grandmothers. They know this. They know that they're outcompeted by the other women that will take care of a man, that will build a future with a man, that will give him kids, that will allow him to lead the family. They understand this, but they've doubled down on their bad decisions from the ideas drilled in your head from the mainstream narrative of you're independent, men ain't this and that, you don't need no man, boss babe, Sex in the City, hypersexualization. Go show your body on Instagram. Go show the world everything. Go make an OF for a $5.99 or whatever the hell it is. You go, queen. No consequences for your action. You should have it all. They're not taught about accountability. They're not taught about consequences, agency, none of that. Doesn't matter. Do it. Buy it. Experience it. That's it. That's delusional. Living like that is delusional. So men have started to go overseas to find women that aren't delusional. And they're screaming from the rooftops, showing people. But again, how do you get through somebody's head that's so indoctrinated in a way of life that gets reinforced by her entire friend circle? They're all making the same mistakes, and it's the crabs in a bucket mentality. They pull each other down. If one woman sees that she's making these mistakes, wants to change her life, wants to go down the straighter path, wants a man to take care of her, she gets absolutely chastised by other women, her own friends. You're setting us back, sis. You've internalized misogyny. You're a pick-me. They already have words for women that don't agree with this lifestyle. There's no winning.
think infidelity occurs most commonly in your experience?
I would honestly say if you ever get cheated on, I know people hate me for this, but it's usually your fault. And the reason I say that, particularly with men, a cheating woman shows you every red flag from day one. If you choose to ignore red flags, you'll pay the price. In life, you pay prices. There's price tags. Now, everybody shows you that the cheaters show you they're going to be a cheat. And how they show it is very simple. Their values. They'll show you that they've done it in the past. Maybe they show you that they are not so traditional. Maybe they show you that they don't believe in monogamy. Maybe they're addicted to pornography. Cheaters show you they're
Facts. 100% agree with her. It is your fault as a man. So there's going to be some buttherds in the comments saying, but they're chameleons. They'll show you a different side. No, you know from the get-go. She doesn't match your values. She's not a godly woman. She doesn't want a family. She talks bad about her exes. These are everywhere. You just didn't see the red flags as red flags. You then invested and then got caught in the sunk cost fallacy, started a relationship with a woman that shouldn't have had a relationship with you whatsoever, and then you ended up getting burned. This happens to a lot of men. The brutal truth is most men aren't equipped with this knowledge. Now, that's a whole different conversation in and of itself that, hey, I didn't know and I got burned. Then you get turned onto the red pill and now you're starting to understand female nature. That's understandable. But it doesn't negate the fact of what she just said. If you got cheated on in a relationship, it is your fault as a man. It really is, 100%. Who controls sex? Women. You have to convince her to sleep with you. Who controls relationships? Men. She has to convince you to keep her around. So if you got convinced to keep her around, you didn't do your due diligence as a man. Whether you looked out for the signs or not, that's a whole different conversation. Still rests on your shoulders from that foundational point. Tough pill to swallow, but it's okay. Because as long as you know what to look out for, you shouldn't get burned anymore, ever again. It's very easy.
Their past. They show you everything. Now, if you don't want to get cheated on, you either choose that cheater but know what the score is, and then you don't get hurt, or you know what's going to happen. But ignoring red flags is always going to land you in that position. Now, whenever I have clients that have been cheated on a lot for 5-6 years, a man's got another mistress, or 3 years she's still been talking to her ex, I was like, there's no way she can get to 3 years without you consenting. And they're like, what do you mean by that? I was like, they would have been late replies, there would have been days their phones are off, there would have been not telling you where they're going. They tell you everything. Their social media would have suggested something. You would have been questioning them sometimes, and they would have got defensive rather than reassuring you. They would have been signs. You chose to ignore them. The price you pay for that, unfortunately, is infidelity. So you either accept an unfaithful and know what they're doing, and then just decide, okay, I can accept it, but I'd rather be with you than not without you. But denying the red flags is always, it's going to catch up on you. The infidelity is going to occur. So that's why people get cheated on. Why people choose to do it is because they can get the comfort of a relationship with the joy and pleasure of an alternative connection. So they get two in one. So they might get the comfort of somebody who pays the bills, but the sex life of a young personal trainer that she wants. And he might get the comfort of a good wife, but then the sexual experience of a escort when he goes and does that. So we become so greedy. We don't realize that some things have to involve a sacrifice. A healthy marriage has to involve sacrificing the alternatives. We don't see the need to sacrifice alternatives because now we are so gluttonous. Even if we eat a lot, we can still do that and get surgery. Even if we spend a lot, we can still get credit cards. We no longer see the sacrifice of alternatives as required in order for positive outcomes.
Yeah, there's a cool quote that says,
nailed it.
There are no options, only trade-offs, right? That for everything that you want, there is something else that you need to give up. Yeah. And I think that's a good way to look at relationships.
Yeah. If you want a good, healthy...
One simple one for women today is the paradox of choice. The fact that dating apps exist and they have unlimited amounts of choices makes them crippled and always unhappy with their partners and always swiping away to the next one. Whenever a problem happens, they'll bail and just swipe for the next guy. They can't deal with working towards a relationship. It has to be a Disney fairy tale, perfect all the time. No arguments, no fights, no disagreements, and no coming to the table to negotiate. Nothing. They think this is why the dating culture is today, because of this delusion that's ingrained in women through the choices they have. They have unlimited choices in men. The outcome is their attitude. You're seeing it play out in real time.
marriage, unfortunately, you might have to sacrifice the most exciting sexual experience every day of your life, because that's what 20 years of marriage doesn't look like. It's realistic. And if you want like a single life, then you have to accept that your emotional, like you might suffer from anxiety and depression in the long run. So you've got to realize whatever decision you make, it comes with a lot of pain and suffering. Pick your pain. Being married, the pain might involve being bored. It might not being sexually stimulated. But being single, the pain might involve a lot of loneliness, depression, and sadness. Just pick which pain you can handle and confine yourself to that decision and ward off all the alternatives.
I'd say even that's a negative outlook on making choices. You don't have to settle to that extreme, honestly. If you, speaking as a man, if you go overseas, if you find yourself a traditional person that matches your values, you don't necessarily have to have any of these choices that she's listing out. You can be happy. You can have a vibrant sex life. You can be content with your partner. They can be very agreeable, and they can make sacrifices that would make you happy. Likewise, you would make sacrifices that would make them happy. It doesn't have to be this rush to the bottom, no-win scenario where you have to pick between two lesser evils, being sexually bored or being lonely. No, it doesn't have to come to that. That's just more of the toxic modern thinking.
Do you think about getting back together after infidelity?
Get back together. Absolutely. If there's children, I don't say no way, no way, no way. If there's no children, I always tell people to reconsider. But one thing I would say is different for men and women. When a man forgives a female cheat, she can't respect you the same way. You got to remember, we like alpha men. Alpha men don't accept promiscuity. So what happens when you accept a woman back, a part of her will always feel like you're weak.
She's better than you.
You don't have the willingness to walk away, because there's nothing that can push a man to walk away more than infidelity. And if that didn't do it, nothing will. So now she's lawless. For a man, again, I don't massively recommend it unless there's children, but I would focus more on what was the meaning behind the affair. What were they seeking? And if it's something that you can do in your marriage, by all means do it. But if it's something that's more traumatic and it's more to do with an emptiness and a trauma in their childhood, and you can't fill that void, then you still can get back with them, but expect the behavior to continue. When people get back together after affair, I just say, but ask yourself, if he stayed exactly the same and still cheated 5 years down the line, could you be okay with it? And if you decide, you know what, I can, as long as you're good to me and good to the kids, I can do it. By all means do it. But don't go back together expecting it to be completely different. It's not realistic.
Interesting to think that one of the considerations that you're focusing on to do with infidelity is not whether the person can accept that themselves. It's whether the other person can accept being accepted, especially for women.
Yes. So essentially, can you accept worst case scenario? If worst case scenario happens again, can you accept it? If the answer is no, then you're just delaying the divorce. Just do it now. If the answer is yeah, because the alternative, I just don't want to do it, then go ahead. But always ask yourself, can I accept worst case scenario? Then if that happens, at least you're prepared for it. If it doesn't happen, at least your marriage stands a shot.
It's a brutal realization, I guess, for guys that maybe their partner may have had infidelity, and then they can try and do the work to be able to accept them again. But that is creating a rhythm, a vibe that may make it difficult for the partner that cheated on them to accept them back again.
Something dies in us when you accept the unacceptable, because your masculinity is depleted. And the other thing is, the man loses his masculinity. He starts to hate himself for not being able to walk away. Instead of having a pride of attached to like, okay, I've kept my family together, they know they shouldn't do it. There's something speaks to them. So they end up hating themselves. And because they can't always express that, they can get quite hostile and violent towards a woman and can get quite verbally abusive towards her. And I'm not saying she's like an angel, but the verbal abuse, and it's all you're doing is, like I said, you're just essentially punishing her for your inability to walk away. She's going to beg and say, please forgive me, please forgive me. But the reality is, we don't want the man that forgives us. We really don't. We want the man that says, you had your chance. It's been a pleasure. I wish you the best. Because that's the man we respect.
Why do married women cheat?
A lot of married women, a couple of reasons. They didn't marry the person they truly wanted to marry. Their biological clock hit them, and they married who was available at the time. And they might have had an ex that they idolized. They might have had something else. So they didn't marry correctly. They didn't.
This is why body count is so important and alpha widows is a concept. She will never get over the one that got away. Never. That is always the bar that's set that you have to live up to. This is why we say pair bonding is a thing, why emotional damage and trauma from hookup culture is a thing, with women especially. Men don't do it nearly in the same amount that women do, based on the way we pick mates. Men do not get alpha widowed. It's not a concept. It does not work the same, but women will not understand that they cannot approach dating, they cannot approach sex in the same manner as men do. Yet they're still pushed to by society. And it leads to these kinds of consequences. They will pass the quote wall. They will then settle down with a guy they truly don't love, but he is convenient. He's the nice guy. He's the orbiter. He's always around. He's the good friend that's been playing the long game, that's feels oh so lucky now that she's finally matured and changed her mind and has given Timmy a shot. No, that's just a bailout, get out of jail free card. That's what that guy is. If you have a friend, she's a woman, you're a man, and she decides to take interest in you when she's older in life, you're the get out of jail free card. She does not respect you. She does not love you. She does not find you attractive. She only finds you convenient. This is what you have to understand. You cannot be friends with a woman. You can't. There's no such thing as friends. There's always an exchange here. We're getting something out of one another. Somebody's winning and somebody's losing. It's unfortunate. Sorry. Hate to be the bearer of bad news. You got sold Disney lies and bullshit. Men and women always get something out of one another. That's the way nature built us. If you're a nice guy and you're sitting around, she is getting the future value of acting upon your resource extractment when needed. That's what it is. You may not see it day to day. She may be paying for a meal here and there. You may be hanging out. You may be sharing stories. You may be doing this and that and all this other bullshit that comes along with it. While you're the emotional tampon, you're hearing her getting railed out by other dudes. Whatever it is, man, that's happening. Eventually, she's going to come punch that ticket in and come collect. And you're going to be the simp holding the bag. You're going to get a post-wall used up, emotionally damaged, longing for the one that got away woman, thinking you're the lucky guy, and that kid probably has a high propensity to not be yours. The statistics on those specific relationships, if we were to DNA test those men, wow, I'd be so curious to find out what the numbers of paternity fraud would be for that specific instance of guy. It has to be utterly shocking to society. I bet you most of the paternity fraud that we see today, because the DNA test company said something like 30-40%, was it? I bet you a high proportion of those is that exact dynamic. It's got to be wild, man. I'm curious. My intuition and instinct tells me those numbers are well over 50%. For that exact scenario, I'm convinced. It makes no sense to wait on a woman like that. If you're a man, you shouldn't be somebody's second choice, period. But on the other side of the aisle, men are so thirsty, so lonely, so sexless that they will settle with something instead of nothing. And unfortunately, that's the future that awaits you. And that's probably most of the stories that we get online about those horrible divorces where the woman takes everything and she turned on him and was a completely different person in the courtroom, and the harpy that absolutely drug his heart through the mud, the succubus that sucked his life away. That was probably that nice guy. That was the second choice. Because those quote alpha, the first choices, all those dudes, they don't really deal with stuff like this. That's the truth. Those guys are happily married. That dynamic is healthy. I've seen it myself with my very own eyes when I was doing remodeling and construction. I would go to people's houses, two sets of wealthy people. One was the dynamic of the second choice, betafied, nice guy with no spine, still had a hot woman though. And then the other one was like the type A go-getter, highly successful, ambitious man who led the family, real man's man, masculine type, again, with another beautiful woman as well. Those two dynamics were completely different. One, the woman was the boss, berating the guy, leading the guy, telling him how she wanted everything done in the house, constantly whipping him, emotionally abusing him, and hanging over him like a dark cloud. Zero respect. The other guy, the man's man, he completely led the interaction. He knew exactly what he wanted. He's vocal about everything. And all he deferred to his woman was simple inputs. This color, that color, this design or that design. And it was done. He took care of everything. Her energy was completely feminine, submissive, nurturing, beautiful energy, smiling, welcoming into the home. She felt completely safe and secure. That other woman, very hostile, very masculine, very loud, irritated, annoyed. I saw that dynamic every single time. And I guarantee you that dynamic there with a nice guy simp is always going to end horrendously for the guy. If not, he's just going to live a life of absolute terror, because that's a nightmare to be living in. Take that as you will. Marriage isn't bad when you're the first choice. The brutal reality is most of you will never be the first choice. Now, that's a conversation society does not want to have, because that is going to really piss people off. That's going to hurt a lot of feelings. We're just talking about surface level stuff here. There's women acting up. Women have no respect. They're delusional. All this stuff. Men need to do this and that. Self-improve. No. The real conversation here is you were a fallback plan and you thought it was love. Women are very opportunistic.
Choose the person that they wanted to marry. They chose the person who wanted to marry them. And so they settled to begin with, or they started wrong. And that can happen. On the alternative side, it could be is when she hasn't felt desired for a really long time. And she puts the feeling of needing to feel desired and sexy and attractive as a number one emotion. So she'll put that over and above her family, and she craves that. So if she's naturally born quite attention seeking, or if she married who wanted to marry her rather than who she truly wanted to marry,
red flags.
Unfortunately, she's more prone to cheating.
Yep.
Yeah, and also if she grew up with a bit of chaos.
No father.
I find that women that come from single parent homes are far more likely to cheat. And the reason I've noticed that, and the only hypothesis I can think of, is that usually when somebody isn't fulfilling our needs, we can go back to a safe haven of two. We're designed to have two parents that love us. We've got mum and dad. Two people love us. That's how it should be. Now, when those two people, one of them is absent, you always feel like there's a void. So when you're in a relationship and all of it is on him, if he stops giving you that love, you almost seek it as a backup, because you don't want that emptiness that you may have experienced as a child. So they almost have a backup before they can leave the guy. They can't just leave and be by themselves, because that really feels lonely. They'd rather leave when they've got somebody else. It's like having that extra parent.
No, what it is imitating healthy relationships. If you're growing up and don't have a healthy relationship to imitate, to base your experience off of, like seeing a successful man and a woman together throughout your entire lifetime with love, as a child, you have nothing to replicate in your own life. We learn by watching, mimicking, and doing ourselves. So if you're in a happy, healthy, loving home where your parents are intimate with one another, they show love, they're constantly there for one another, they don't argue, they're not toxic, they don't fight in any negative manner, they always come to the table together and solve their problems, you have a very healthy example to follow of what you should do in your relationship as well. Now, when your father is missing and you're a little girl and you don't have that security there, the comfort there, the safety there, and you're constantly alone with your mother, that emptiness manifests in a very negative view on men. You have nothing to base a healthy relationship on. So when you go into your own relationships as a woman and your father was never present, and you don't respect men, and you don't even know the value of a man in your life, your relationship is doomed to fail. Simply you replicating your childhood. That's all it is, man. All this childhood trauma is just you reliving all these moments in your adult life. It's what drives you. This is why you have to reprogram yourself, because not everything is healthy in your environment as a child. Parents are humans too. Your parents aren't perfect. They made mistakes. You have to understand that and peel back all the damage. This is why I've constantly told you guys too, 3 simple rules. 3 simple rules, bro, and you'll avoid most of the issues in dating today. And it pisses people off, but it's true. If she comes from a divorced family, no. If she has more guy friends than girlfriends, no. And the last one is what she did to him, she'll do to you. We're just talking about her history with her past exes, her need for attention-seeking behavior by having male friends or even entertaining male friends, and her childhood trauma from growing up in a divorced household. If you just follow these 3 rules, which will piss so many people off, and it applies to men too, unfortunately, but if you follow these 3 rules, you will be mostly okay. It's not a universal law. It's just 3 simple rules to completely cut out the majority of the trash you may deal with in the dating game. And unfortunately, in the world we live today, in the West, that's a majority of people. Almost everybody is that person. That's what's unfortunate. And when you are one of these people, you're going to automatically feel personally attacked. You're going to automatically feel the need to defend yourself and how you're different and all this stuff. But unfortunately, for every one different one, there's thousands more that are still damaged. That's the issue.
In your life, you like when you have mom that annoys you, you've always got dad, you've got a backup. But when you didn't grow up with that being by yourself is really horrible and lonesome. So they always, if one person lets them down, they always try and keep a backup in case that person removes their love from them.
It's a safety hatch.
Safety hatch, yeah.
What about men? Why do men cheat?
Men usually cheat when they're chasing an ego boost. They're not usually in love with the person that they're cheating with, but they are in love with the feeling that person gives them. And sometimes the person makes them feel seen. Sometimes a person makes them feel like they're fed. Sometimes they feel a person makes them feel attractive. Whatever it is, heard. They're chasing a particular feeling that they're deprived of, either from their marriage or from their childhood. And as a result, they seek it. It's not sexual. People think it's just, men love sex, men love sex. There's some men out there, if they really love sex, they would just have sex with their wives. They haven't had sex with their wives in a long time. But they crave novelty, or they crave somebody else making them feel a certain way. So I don't think it's all sexual. I think it's far more psychological and emotional than they think it is. And they label it as sex, but really it's the new person is making them feel seen. And maybe they felt unseen for a really long time at home.
And I suppose that a lot of...
And that happens in situations where you have kids and your woman stops being the lover and completely goes into mom mode. There's a lot of women that do this. They think their kids take precedent over the man. It doesn't. This is another brutal truth people aren't ready to have. The most successful relationships is where the man and the woman put their needs above everything else. Because once you put each other's needs above everything else, including the children, your children benefit. See, it's like a pyramid. If the tip top of the pyramid is the parents, or you could say it's the bottom, the foundation, doesn't matter. If either of those are messed up, then everything crumbles. Now, if all you do as a woman is take care of your kids, always looking after the kids, start neglecting your husband, forget about being the lover, start neglecting your body, don't take care of yourself, become unattractive to your partner, your man starts to go out the relationship, he cheats, you guys are disconnected, I don't understand, I gave him kids, why would he do this to me? He became invisible in your relationship. You stopped giving him love. You stopped taking care of him. You stopped doing the most important thing, being intimate with your husband for your kids. Now you've destroyed your marriage. You've destroyed your relationship. And now you've destroyed your upbringing for your children. They don't want to have this conversation though, because it's the kids. Kids first. Kids first in the relationship. That's all that matters is the kids. No, actually it doesn't. The relationship between the parents is the most important thing. A healthy relationship between the parents is a healthy upbringing and environment for the children. You ruin the parents, you ruin the kids. Period. They don't want to hear that one.
Single people or escorts are purposefully portraying a version of themselves, makes that person feel seen.
Yeah, the escorts know exactly what they're doing. Same with sugar babies. They know that with this man who's been married for so long, they target married men because they have in my experience of watching them, what they do is they have a leverage, because every time he doesn't pay her, he can say, I'm going to tell your wife. So they really do target married men because they've got that leverage, but also the low self-esteem in married men is so easy to manipulate them. Giving them a phone call to tell them that they look great, tell them that they smell great, telling them there's coffee ready. They haven't heard these phrases in a really long time, and that works perfectly with married men. But it doesn't work so much with a man who's been on the single scene for so long and has 4 or 5 different girls coming over every month or whatever it is.
Exactly. It's neglect. Men get neglected, so they'll go outside the relationship for some simple things like that. And, the other side's not willing to hear it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below on some of those other heated realities. We'll see you on the next one.